Well, hello, welcome to Alyssa Jean's Reviews. This is my video for the 5 worst episodes in Star Trek in the category of parallel universes and alternate timeline episodes. So, last month in my top 10 best time travel episode video, I explained why I chose to combine some alternate timeline episodes with parallel universe episodes. So if you want to know why I'm doing it that way, go watch that video because I'm not going to go through it again. What I do want to talk about in this intro is why only 5 worst parallel universe and alternate timeline episodes? Why not 10? Well, so here's the thing. I gathered up all of the parallel universe and alternate timeline episodes that I was considering, like all the parallel universe episodes that I could find, plus some alternate timeline episodes, and it totaled 20 episodes. So you think, hey, well, easy peasy, let's do 10 best, 10 worst, and that's all of them? Here's a problem with that. 5 of the episodes that don't make my top 10 best, 5 out of the 10, are too good for a worst list. There's no way I can in good conscience say that these 5 episodes are in any way worse, that they're bad. In fact, some of them are quite good. I just couldn't squeeze them into my top 10 because there's too many good parallel universe alternate timeline episodes. So rather than just having a 10 worst list where the first 5 on the list of my worst are actually episodes that I like, I decided to save those for an honorable mention section next week. I'll just go through quickly the 5 episodes that didn't fit in either list. They were too good to make my worst list, but I couldn't quite squeeze them into my top 10. I will talk about them next week on my top 10 best parallel universe alternate timeline episodes video, and I will do a little honorable mention section for those 5 episodes. So that leaves us with 5 episodes that will fit into the worst category. And if I'm being perfectly honest with you, number 5 is actually not terrible. I'll get into it in just a minute when I talk about number 5, but it's actually not awful, but I've figured, 5 is better than 4, so I'm going to go ahead and talk about it here on this worst list. And the top 4 of this list are all episodes I just genuinely do not like, and in fact, I'd say the top 3 are at hatred level of episodes that I just hate. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in to my 5 worst episodes in the category of parallel universe and alternate timeline episodes in Star Trek. Number 5 is Alive. At number 5, NonSequitur from Star Trek Voyager. This, of course, is an alternate timeline episode that I'm including in this category as it does kind of fit as a what-if scenario that includes alternate versions of our known characters. So this is an episode that I think probably was better in the writer's room on paper than it actually was in practice. I'm sure it seemed like a good idea. Hey, why don't we have a scenario where one of our Voyager crew doesn't go on Voyager and ends up on Earth instead? Let's do an alternate timeline episode. I'm sure it sounded like a great idea, but in practice, what you have is a guy working his 9-to-5 job at a Starfleet office, stopping for coffee on the way, coming home to his girlfriend saying, "Hi, honey, I'm home." Like, it's pretty monotonous. It's kind of boring. Like, it's not really that interesting of a story. And also, what is Harry Kim whining about? He's better off this way. I know he feels guilty because some other dude ended up stuck in the Delta Quadrant. Well, he doesn't mind being stuck in the Delta Quadrant because he's going out of his way to get back there. So I'm sure the other dude is fine. For all he knows, that other guy ends up finding the love of his life on Voyager, and he has a girlfriend here, which he never has in the whole 7 seasons of the show. Hell, he probably gets promoted if he stays there on Earth. So I don't know what he's whining about. Now, the one good thing about this episode and it's the reason why I don't totally hate it, is the Tom Paris factor, because they do show that connection between these two characters even across timelines, and I do think it makes a lot of sense that Tom would get kicked off of Deep Space Nine because Harry wasn't there to save him. I thought that was a really interesting way to go. So the Tom Paris factor is really the only thing that saves this episode from being really, really bad, but as it is bad enough to make my top 5 worst list for parallel universe and alternate timeline episodes in Star Trek. Number 4. At number 4, the counterclock incident from Star Trek, the animated series. And I do count this as a parallel universe episode, even if it doesn't have alternate versions of our characters. At least not that we meet in this episode, but it is an alternate universe where everything works in reverse from our universe, including time, including aging, including the way that people talk. And that's a really interesting concept. That, plus the fact that this was, for a very long time, the only episode in all of Star Trek that featured Captain Robert April, until, of course, Strange New Worlds came out, those things made it so I really, really wanted to like this episode. Like, I feel like I should like this episode. I watched it recently, and I tried so hard. I was straining, trying to force myself to like this episode, and I just can't. I'm sorry, I try hard. I just can't like this episode. It's just a silly, silly episode. First, I don't really understand why this woman from the other universe sounded like she was talking backwards when she was in their universe, and they couldn't understand each other. Neither of them could understand each other. And then Kirk takes the Enterprise over to her universe, and now they all sound like they're talking forward. How does that work exactly? So either they should all not be able to understand each other in both universes, or they should all be able to understand each other in both universes. It needs to be consistent. You see what I'm saying? And the reason, though, that this really makes my list is because of the silly de-aging sequence. So first of all, they go over there and, like, nothing happens for like 10 minutes. They don't de-age at all. And then all of a sudden, boom, 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 they de-age really, really quickly. And they turn into silly little kids. It's like the Next Generation episode Rascals, which is a notoriously awful episode. And I'm sorry, I just want to like it. I just can't. It's just way too silly. I just can't like it.
Number 3! Yay!
At number 3, Resurrection from Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Season 6. So, I really enjoyed the Mirror Universe saga in Deep Space Nine through the first 3 entries, although I felt like it was getting worse with each entry. Like, I loved the Season 2 version. Season 3 was not as good, but still pretty good. Season 4 was good, but I saw the quality going downhill, and I was actually glad that they didn't have a Mirror Universe episode in Season 5. Then they come back with this one in Season 6, and this is where it jumps the shark. Particularly the character of Intendant Kira, who was an interesting character at the start of this Mirror Universe saga, but now has devolved into a ridiculous, over-the-top, silly, mustache-twirly villain. She's just so far gone. I just can't get behind this character anymore. And they have this really cliche plot that's kind of a remake of the Jennifer plot from the Season 3 episode, where you have the dead lover coming back, but actually he works for the villain. But actually, no, he's seen the error of his ways, and it's just a really poorly put together story, and you throw in the silly, over-the-top intended Kira, and this episode is just really hard to watch. And I was just hoping they wouldn't do another one of these, but wait, there is one more coming up later on in this video.
There's 2 of them. Number 2.
At number 2, Penance from a Star Trek Picard Season 2. So this is an alternate timeline episode, and it's one that I completely forgot to mention last month in the introduction of my best time travel video. I talked about alternate timeline episodes that I was holding over for the Parallel Universe category, and I named off 4 of them, and I completely forgot about this one. There's actually 5 of them, and probably because I was blocking it from my memory because this season overall was so awful. Now, this is one I actually didn't think was too bad at first, but then seeing it in context and how the whole thing is nonsensical and how I still don't understand how the timeline was changed. Did Q just change it by snapping his fingers, or did he originally go back and go through all that trouble of getting a job at NASA and keeping Renee Picard from doing her thing, but then Picard went back and changed that? I don't know. It's just so confusing. The reason why, though, this makes this list is because it's a mirror universe rip-off. The Confederation? Really? That just sounds like something that you would see in some fanfic, like knockoff Star Trek that doesn't have the rights to the Federation. No, we're not the Federation, we're the Confederation. So, you see, the mirror universe didn't exist in the Next Generation times the way that it did in TOS times, because as we know, although we never saw the mirror universe on the Next Generation, we saw it in Deep Space Nine, which was around the same time, and at that point the Terran Empire had been conquered and the Alliance had taken over, so we never got to see the evil Picard or the evil Riker. There was a novel that came out, written by Peter David, that I loved, that came out before Deep Space Nine changed what happens in the mirror universe. And I love that novel, but they never actually got to do it. So they decided, hey, let's just pretend that this is the mirror universe, and let's just do like a fake mirror universe. I have a question. In this alternate timeline with the Confederation, does the mirror universe still exist? Like, did Confederation Captain Kirk travel into the mirror universe and go, da 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 da, hey, I'm evil. Yeah, I'm evil too. No, I'm more evil. Like, how does that work exactly? I'm sorry, but I just can't deal with this knockoff mirror universe episode, especially in context of this awful season 2 of Picard. Number 1. And the number 1 worst parallel universe episode in Star Trek is the Amethyst New Cloak. So this is the Season 7 entry into the Mirror Universe saga in Deep Space Nine. And as I talked about earlier, they had already jumped the shark in Season 6. So I don't know what you call this. The re-jumping the shark? I don't know. But intended Kira here is even sillier, even more cartoonish, even more over the top than she was in Season 6. And on top of that, they bring back the Mirror Worf character to join her in the silliness, as he is even more ridiculous than she is, and not even remotely funny. I feel like they were going for humor here, and I don't find it at all funny. I just found it really aggravating. And they combined this with something else that had long since jumped the shark, probably from the very beginning, which is the whole Grand Nagus saga and who's going to be the Grand Nagus and blah, blah, blah. I really never gave a crap about any of that, and I can't think of a storyline for a Mirror Universe episode that I would care less about, or that I would want to see any less than a storyline about Quark and the Ferengi going to rescue the Grand Nagus from the Mirror Universe. Why? Why? Oh, why? The only way they could have made this worse was to have Vic Fontaine. Oh, wait. Never mind. Never mind. Okay, so this was awful, and it is very easily the number one worst parallel universe or alternate timeline episode in all of Star Trek. Okay, everybody, thanks so much for joining me for my 5 worst parallel universe alternate timeline episode list. Don't forget to hit that like button, and if you have not already, please subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and join me next week as I cover the 10 best parallel universe and alternate timeline episodes. I will also, as I said earlier, cover those 5 honorable mention episodes very quickly at the start of that video. So please join me for that, and I will see you real soon, everybody. Goodbye.